Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Power of Man podcast. My name's Rory Paquette, and I know you know that, folks. But I just love to remind myself about how grateful I am to be sitting in this chair every single time I get in front of this mic. Folks, if it wasn't for you, all of you out there, across almost 400 episodes now, folks, you have carried us, you have made us what we are, and we are one of the most successful podcasts in this genre, in this industry, and in this movement because of you. And I want to thank you for that every single time I get on the mic. So thank you for putting up with me, and I love you all. Folks, if you're a friend of the program, and I know you are, then you know what time it is. That's right. We got to take a sip of our preferred beverage. Man, that is good stuff. And you guys all know what we're drinking. That's right. It's Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up and check them out. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful. Just like my wife. They brew a mean bean. It's a fantastic cup of joe. And I tell you what, they do all the right things for all the right reasons, including supporting veterans. And you all know that it is incredibly important here at the Power Man podcast that we all support veterans. If you're a veteran out there, I want to thank you and your family for your sacrifice. If you hadn't gone out and done what you did, and if you don't continue to do what you do, they would have shut me down a long time ago. And I know because they've tried. And because people like you, they can't. Folks, thank you so much. And we're glad you found a home here. We love you. So does Freedom Hill Coffee. Look them up, check them out at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram, and tell them Power of Man sent you. Now, before I get going with this young buck on the other side of the table from me here, I need to get one more sip of this preferred beverage so I can keep up. I need some caffeine here. All right, this young guy is amazing. I've talked to him for just a few minutes. I can't wait to hear his story. And here we go. So this gentleman, he grew up in Bulgaria. He moved to the UK. He has written several books talking about men's work, trauma, recovery, things like that. His most recent book, Rise from the Ashes, is what we're going to talk about today, amongst a bunch of other things. So please welcome to our show author George Stoimenov. George, how you doing, brother?
Thank you, Rory. Very well, thanks. So happy to be here.
I'm very happy to have you here, and can't wait to hear about your book and the things that you're working on. But you've got quite an intriguing story, along the way here too. So why don't we kind of start with, who is George Stoimenov, and how did you kind of get to this spot in your life where you're at now?
That's a great question. Thank you. And just to clarify, I'm not as young as I probably look. I'm just immature. That's why I look even younger. No, I'm 41 years old. I was born in 1984. Interesting year. Very
Right.
infamous number, right? In Bulgaria, which was right before communism collapsed. And so when I was coming up, it was a very chaotic time. That's when all the Western influence came in. That's where we started getting all the additional television channels, and it was an exciting time to be alive. I mean, to me, every moment is exciting, but there was something about growing up without rules, so to speak. There were no societal rules. There was no every week there'll be another mafia boss from the city being shut down, and it's like that was life. But I grew up in the
Wow.
country. I didn't grow up in the city, and I was enchanted by nature from the beginning. Nature was. I just couldn't believe how beautiful life was, and I knew there was more to life than just. I looked around me, and I see people are very content with just being unconscious, just going through life. You have school, take school, for example. You have the beautiful people, you have the not so beautiful people, you have the intellectuals, you have the not so, and you have the cool kids and the people who more like me. But I looked around and I'm thinking they're not aware of how miserable they are because everyone is missing something. And I am agonizing. I'm like, look at me, why am I so self-conscious? And one particular area of fear, massive fear, from the beginning, since I was very little, was men who had an aggressive edge to them. And I think that's my own father wound because my dad was a wonderful man, collar hero, I would say, working class hero. In many ways, he spent 6 years in Siberia right before I was born, working there. I mean, most people who went to Siberia back in the day, they didn't do it voluntarily, but he did. He went to work, and it was he's got wild stories to tell. But my mom was saying that when he came back for a while, if he dozed off in front of the television, she was afraid to touch him to wake him up because he would just leap. He was that high strung. And so he had this energy, even though we had wonderful conversation. He would teach me about life. One thing he couldn't give me is what he didn't have intimacy. So we never had that. Come on, let's wrestle or let's help. Come on, son, I'll give you a hug. We never had that. And that's not, again, he didn't have that to give. And
Wow.
I was afraid of men, other men. And I remember I remember later on in my 20s where, I mean, I fast forward a little bit just to give you that glimpse, and then
Sure.
we can go back. I was working on doors. I was pretending to be a big man, really, a boy in a man's body, but I was doing my best with what I had, lifting weights, being that big guy working as a bouncer on the doors. And I remember when another bouncer would come and put their hand on my shoulder, wanted to show me something on their phone. And if I didn't have any drugs or drink in me, which wasn't very often, I would freeze because there was like a closeness of another man. I never did any competitive, even though I was big, I was doing the gym, I did it all in secret by myself. I never did any competitive sports, any wrestling, boxing, even like swimming in a team, anything to do with team with other men, I would shy away from. The only time when I was free is when I had a few lines of cocaine and some whiskey, sadly, but that was when I was free and I could talk like that now,
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
but yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's really interesting. Now, at the time, were you aware that you were reacting this way, or was this something that,
Yes.
looking back, you're understanding? At the time, you
No,
knew this was
no.
happening.
That was the curse of, and now looking back, the blessing of my existence, because it's only a curse if you think there's no way out. I was thinking, why am I
Right.
such a little boy in a man's body? And I'll tell you when actually the self-hatred really started to cement itself, like really crystallized, is I knew how inefficient as a man I was. And of course, now people would say, no, George, you were just good enough as you were. But I don't agree with that. I think if you have a longing to be someone better, if you have a longing to be more mature, to be more heroic in a way. I mean, my dad was a guy who, even in his 50s, and he wasn't this big fighter guy, he wasn't fit, anything. He was just had a strong character. And so people at his job really respected him. So if he saw something like some injustice, he would address it. He would speak like to his boss, like, wow, okay. And he was respected, he was loved, but he didn't pull punch it, and I did. I was always the opposite because of I couldn't participate in his world. Again, in my book, The Father Wound, I did dissect the reasons why people become like that. Because when the boy is not made one in the man's world, one with daddy, one you're part of my world, then you can't participate and you can't tap into your own masculinity because that's only developed within a man's world, within man's settings, not just the father, but other men as well. But the father is the doorway very often, the father, and the lack of a father is that in an inverted way. And so, where was I going with this? Yes, yeah. And so I was aware of my inefficiencies. I was like, why can't I be like my dad? My dad, when he was younger, everyone in his village would talk and say, George, your father was like crazy. He didn't allow anyone to say anything about his sister, or he didn't allow anyone to be bullied. He would just react straight away. And it's like, every time when I heard that, I was like, yeah, and I'm not like that. And that made me very sad. That made me very sad.
Oh,
Um, and so the moment when that crystallized, when I was 15, I was some guy just kind of bullied me, gave me a black eye, and I went home defeated. But I didn't even fight. It wasn't a healthy teenage boys. No, no, no. I did not have a fight in me. It wasn't a physical thing. It was moral, emotional, spiritual. Like my spirit was broken long before anything external has happened. But on that night when I was 15, something was cut off from me completely. It's almost like I've been chiseling away at this part of me that I didn't like because it was little, young, and soft. And on that day, the biggest blow came, and that part of me just split. And so when I was at home, my dad saw the black eye, and he tried to help me, like the best way he could. He said, "Who gave you the black eye?" And I told him, and he said, "Listen, George, you should tomorrow after tomorrow, you get these guys one by one, get them, and like beat them up." And it's like, I don't even think is that wrong what he said, not at all. But when you've not had the intimacy with the masculinity outside, you don't have your own masculinity inside. So pep talk doesn't work because part of you is so traumatized, like, yeah, but I can't, yeah, but I can't, and so I don't even belong to this man. How can I? If he sees how weak I am, he will not like me, which is not true. But it's how we
right.
perceive it. True or not, this is not about logic. It's about how much love have you been given from the male world,
Right.
from the world of men. And that's why if you look many like people who are in the army and veterans, they've had some male bonding. They didn't just come out of without men. They had either a father or an uncle or someone or a community of men, like to be in the woods together with. They got some of that masculinity from somewhere. It didn't just wasn't just dropped from the sky. Otherwise, we all have it. And
Right.
so, and I remember just looking down and my dad saw that I was not, well, I was not pumped up. I wasn't going to do anything like that. And he just said, almost like a regret, he said, "Oh, don't worry, you're not built for that." I'll take care of this. Now, as soon as I heard you're not built for that, it was almost like a bomb went off in my psyche inside of me. And, and my father, he kept saying things, kept speaking, but almost like in the movies when a bomb would go off and you see people's lips are moving, but you can't hear because of your the beeping noise, the whatever you call that. It's like too loud and you're lost in your own traumatized universe. And it's like, I'm not even here. Half of me is not even here anymore. And I remember while he continued to speak, I started to almost speak to myself, upon myself. I turned on myself saying, you little worm, you little horrible, weak, misshapen, twisted little boy. I wish I could kill you. I wish I could pull you out of me, get rid of you, and move
Yeah.
on without you, and grow up with grow. Literally, pretty much, that's what I did. The very next day, I started to lift weights. I didn't care about health. I didn't care about fitness. I had zero desire to do it. The only thing that drove me was I hated myself and I wanted to build up a big body. So I didn't care how I lifted. I didn't. Yeah, later on I started to read like bodybuilding magazines, but it was all in secret in a shed, far in the far corner of the house. And for years I hid it from my friends as well. I just started to grow big, and again, it wasn't about health. So I just wanted bigger body, and then I shaved my head when I was about 17. Fast forward 5 years, I was getting in trouble in the village, like big time. And in fact, the worse trouble, the better it made me feel about myself because I still wasn't assertive. I still couldn't speak like that. I couldn't make eye contact. I still was very afraid of men. In fact, more than ever. But I had this crazy thing that is saying I will expose myself to danger, and now I know why. Every time when I mean I have done crazy things, and I had crazy things happen to me. I got this scar here, which is from a baseball bat, believe it or not, in my forehead, and I had car crashes and all of these things before I turned 19. And but every time when I involve myself in these chaotic situations, I felt, yeah, see, I've got it. See, I've got it. And I'll have like 10 men, 10 in their 30s trying to beat me up, and me just grabbing one of them and just saying, okay, but I'll get one of you with me. That was far more comfortable than actually challenging another man to say, I don't like what you say. Stop it. I could never do that, ever. But fight with 10 men? Sure, why not? I'm going to lose, but I'll be the crazy guy. Nobody's going to mess with me. Literally, pretty much, that's what happened. But then that's such a horrible place to be because I know the truth about myself. I'm a good guy. I don't want any of that. I don't, but if they see me as weak, that's not good. So I need to keep up that image. And so that's kind of easily done when you live in a village of like 1,000 people. But then what happens if you move to the city? Then you have real gangsters and the real horrible, like people on the horrible side of life that is like, wow, I don't even want to be around these people. But in many ways, yes, I ended up in the city, and at the age of 19, went to university, and then I started working as a doorman because that was the most natural place. I mean, I was clubbing every night anyway. I was chasing bliss. So everything that was my father's masculine world, get up in the morning, work the same job for 25 years, get up in the morning, no breakfast, no water, no coffee, even just a cigarette, boom, go to work every morning without an alarm. Just get up in the morning and go. Don't complain. Love this job. Came back. I was like, I don't want this life. I don't want. Now, part of this is not a bad thing. Of course, we need to be even better than our forefathers. But part of it was avoiding because I was weak. I was like, no, man, like, no, I can't live this life. And so you can see the rebellion. The rebellion. So not everything about rebellion is bad because you need to be your own man. But if you try to bypass everything from your father because there were some bad things, you're missing out on something. I still needed to be strong like him, like morally, mentally. And I didn't have any of that. So I slept until noon. I went to university. I never got a real job. And I just worked as a bouncer, just being around people who were, like, frankly, quite dangerous. I mean, my bosses were really mafia affiliated people. And yeah, and later on, I met some people who were even on the deeper side of that organized crime. And I was around them, and I had to take drugs too, and you wear sunglasses during the day just to have that image because I was terrified of them. That image of masculinity never worked for me, but that was the best that I could be, I guess. That was the world, and I never wanted it, but it's how you end up, and you try to make the best of it. Tell me when to stop because there are many stories along the way, and I don't want to go on too far.
I didn't want to interrupt that one for sure. I appreciate that though. I mean, it sounds like you've lived, at least most of your life up until this point that we're talking about. So much of your younger life like that, you lived basically from one trauma response to another. is what it sounds like, just a series of trauma responses. I mean, am
Yeah,
I picking that up?
absolutely. Yeah.
And at the time, I know you knew that you were having some issues, but did you realize that they were all trauma responses, or did you end up getting some training later on? Because I know you've done some work later in the story. Did you end up going back and get, to sort of work on these issues, or were you just having to deal with them in survival mode?
Yeah, no, I didn't know that there were issues. I just thought, well, how sad that I'm this little, scared, pathetic excuse for a man, like a boy in a man's body. How sad, how
And
sad.
that
How
was
can
your
I change
self-talk
myself?
inside.
Yeah,
That's what you
yeah,
were saying all the time. Goodness
yeah,
gracious, man.
yeah. And that's where the drugs and alcohol come in because, like, well,
Right.
and then I was my best when I was around women. Even if I didn't have anything to do with them, I love the female. It's almost like bliss because women are very relational and if and I had this poetic side as well. So and they found me very sweet to be around. Even if I didn't necessarily pursue them as partners, I just loved the female company. But as soon as one of the guys came in, part of me just shut down because like especially if that guy was had a sharp side to him, more of a masculine kind of strong presence. And so I was, like you said, very, very traumatized. But then I tell you when I started to work on my issues. And let's face it, even to this day, I don't like pain. I don't like pain. I don't if
Hmm.
I can go without pain all my life, I'll happily sign up for that. But looking back, up until very recently, I mean, and I think it's ongoing to be completely honest, the best things in life that I've been given within myself. And I believe that the self that you become then can receive more stuff, more opportunities, more. But it's who you are that almost like you attract different situations or people. And so the best thing that I've been given in terms of my personality today that I like about myself have been a result of pain. And that is ongoing, as I said. But it started when I was 24, and I met this girl who was the only woman that really, for her, she had something substantial in her, and she was the only one who kind of made me, didn't make me, but made me want to give up the pursuit of pleasure, that the blissfulness of just chasing pleasure, chasing women, chasing partying, and then being depressed the next day. And for her, I was like, wow, you know what? Maybe I am someone different. Maybe I could try and change. And that's where I started to feel the pain because I realized that I couldn't. And then we moved to England, feeling like, well, I guess. And I had a very, it's almost like this very comfortable existence, especially when I was 24. On that age, I met this guy and I was working for him, driving his car, but there was nothing illegal. There was nothing mafia, unlike other previous kind of my work as a bouncer. It was more like, no, he was a businessman. He saw some potential in me, and he gave me an opportunity. He even gave me a place to live in, and it's like, wow, in this big city by the sea, beautiful. And then I met this girl, and I'm thinking, wait a minute. But she's been traveling. She came back from the US actually. She's been traveling. She lived all over the country, over America, all over Europe in many ways, in Greece and Cyprus. And she said, "I'm not staying here. I'll continue to travel." And she said, "Maybe you can join me." And I'm like, "Wait a minute. First of all, I don't know you. Like we've been dating for like a few weeks, but I knew something was different. That was the only relationship that I felt maybe I could sacrifice something. Which for me was I was such a boy in a man's body that any amount of sacrifice was completely foreign thing, completely alien. I don't know what that is because I was just coasting. I was comfortable. And for about 10 days, something started to bug me. I started to agonize. And I'm thinking, my goodness, what if? What if I turn around one day and I'm in my 50s maybe, and maybe I have a lot of money. Maybe I have all the company that I enjoy. Maybe I have that bliss. But part of me would always regret that. What if that happens? How unhappy would that be? What if you have taken that chance, George? And that suspicion was really kind of confirmed when I came home one morning and I was taking cocaine and things, so I couldn't sleep right away. And because I was living away from home, I started to revisit the movies that I'd grown up with in the 90s. I started to just revisit them. I don't know why. I'm always interested in my own history. So what was it about some of those movies that captivated me? So every night or so, I'll Google and watch some movie. And that night was Good Will Hunting with Matt Damon and Ben
Yeah.
Affleck.
Right.
And then when I finished watching the movie, I just felt something. Maybe I could do the same because if you remember the end of the movie, he had this opportunity of a career. It looked like a smooth sailing. He's calling, right? He's tailor made for him, or the girl. And things with the girl were messy, but there was passion there. There was some. He was drawn, and I felt, you know what? I would rather choose the messiness and see if the risk was worth it or not. Long story short, we came to England together, and I thought that, well, I've like the hardest sacrifice is done. Now it's all smooth sailing. Yeah, it was very difficult to actually strip off the macho, not even macho, but like the night doorman, the black shirts, the shaved head, because I didn't even have a car to drive, no money. Nobody knew who I was. I was just another foreigner on a building site. Hardly could speak English. And it was like, wow, okay. And it was very difficult. But then what was even more difficult is the trauma, because I realized, wait a minute, the fact that you've given up like all these other women, it's not a massive sacrifice, right? That's what a spoiled little brat.
Right.
That's just like just one step towards a normal life, whether you have someone with you or not. And I thought that was enough. Like, wow, I've given up on the old life. Now we should all be happy. But I was, oh my goodness, my mind was fragmented. I mean, I was still addicted to sex so much that I was, not only was I watching porn all the time, but also if we go to the beach, I would be just, my eyes would be everywhere. I'm like, oh my goodness, shouldn't be doing that. But you know, that was when I was 24, the first time when I realized maybe something about me is not quite right. You know, maybe I'm kind of like damaged person. It took a woman to actually point that out to me. And you know what I also realized? I thought from the beginning of my life that I couldn't be like my dad, because my dad could get angry at injustice. If he saw someone being like mistreated or bullied, or if there was something I didn't agree, he could raise his voice and say, no, that's not true. I never had that sort of backbone. Never. I could never get. That's why I had to drink and take coke. I'm like, okay, I'll get in trouble, but I know what I was doing. I was like acting out of this macho image just to keep the bullies and the thugs at bay, and I did. And in some ways, yes, it is better than just being a victim. But is it? I mean, I don't know. It's just another extreme, isn't it? Just another extreme. But at least almost like you're involved in it. At least you're acting something out. Otherwise, you're just on the receiving end. So I think
Right.
both are equally bad. But one has the illusion of action. It's like motion. Yeah, I'm doing something. See, but anyway, even then, I had no anger. I never. And yet, as soon as I was trying to share my life with this woman who I loved so much, I started to get angry with her because we started rubbing off against each other in those ways. I'm like, wait a minute. I can't always live like that. That something is wrong with me. But it transpired that something was wrong with me. And so that's what drove me to seek help. And I sought help. I threw myself, and that was, I must say, before I had a smartphone. Thank God. Thank God. The distraction, the availability of all sorts of distractions, relief, false comforters in whatever form. No, we for a while we didn't even have internet, I think, which was so great because I was alone with my pain and I had to read books. I'm like, wait a minute, what? So I had to seek help. But you know, when you open this door, I need help. I went to churches, I went to men's group, I went everywhere. I need help. And most of those places, in the beginning at least, I didn't receive help, but I had some direction. And for 2 years, we were just in hell. But we didn't split up. We didn't split up. We both wanted to stay together and do our best. And I was agonizing. I said, "What's wrong with me? Why am I this way?" I would cut myself, and I even once I worked in this factory, and I got this glue gun, and I sprayed some hot glue on my wrist, and it's I don't know if you can
Wow.
see my wrist. I'm showing, and I let it stay there for a while until it really went all the way down to the, not to the bone, but to the sinew, whatever you call that, under the skin. So the whole skin was um, penetrated. And then the doctors after said, "George, can I ask you what happened?" Because normally people, if hot glue or plastic falls on you, people just brush it off. I didn't want to say what happened. I let it stay there because I hated myself. And this culminated. We ended up in Africa, of all places, in Zambia, which was the place of my first spiritual awakening, that first glimpse of hope that after 2 years of suffering. And it was almost like, yeah, people would say on the outside I've had a religious experience, but hey, it wasn't so much religious as I was seeking at something outside of myself. I returned to something good inside of myself. Because that little boy that I started to hate, like that completely disowned when I was 15, in that moment I repented. So the word repent means turn around, change your mind about, make a U-turn. Oh
Okay.
my goodness, I've been so wrong. I tried to grow up and become this man and cut myself off from the little boy because I thought this is how you grow up with no result. But maybe all of that was false. Maybe all of that was wrong. Maybe that was dark. Could it be
Hmm.
that I've abused like the best gift that I've been given, my own life, my own inner self, my own soul? And and when that realization came, something changed, shifted from that moment. And then coming to England, I started to be something woke up in me. And from that moment, even some of my addictions were reduced, at least 20%. Boom, everything was like new hope arose. And it's interesting because that moment when I was 15, when I started to hate myself, I stopped going fishing. Nature, that moment, I stopped it from that summer. When the weights came in the nightclubs, the fishing, the nature, just I was ashamed of it almost. Like, because I had a very much Huckleberry Finn lifestyle, just outdoors and wild, and just getting up to trouble, but in nature, it's exploring. Stop that completely. And on the age of 26, the first thing I did after we came back from Africa, I started Googling all those animals that I was exploring, that I'd grown up with, and reading books that I used to read as a child. Like there's this British naturalist called Gerald Durrell, My Family and Other Animals. Books like that. I bought all his books. I read them all, and I still got them behind me. It's just, they're just part of that's how I feed my soul, my inner child, I guess you could say. And it's, and then that first summer when I went to Bulgaria, I just went in the woods or in the field or in the river with a camera and just taking pictures. Wow, look at this. I remember that animal. I remember that lizard, that snake, whatever it was. And going forward from when I was 26, I started to just devour knowledge, men's group, save money and buy more resources, buy DVDs, buy whatever. Before YouTube was a huge thing, at least for me. And I started to, any money I had, attend events, seminars, anything. And yeah, I went to mountain retreats, climb mountains, whatever. Long story short, a lot of what I used to kind of use to numb my pain and to be distracted from the suffering inside of it, it's gone now. I mean, I don't need. So I do go to the gym, just trying to keep my body sort of not fall apart these days. But I no longer need that size, and that scares me these days. Again, not for everyone, but for me, the way I've used it. I learned to swim. I never could swim because of the trauma. I was so tight. I just lift the big weights, and had high blood pressure, all sorts. A lot of my physical symptoms now at 41, I feel far better than I ever did before. And so, yes, I mean, if any questions that we can go deeper into
Sure.
some of this, but
Yeah, I'm curious because you've done a lot of work in terms of the books you've written on, men's work, trauma, recovery. Is most of the stuff you've written about, is that your story? Is it about you and the things you've been through? Or is this stuff that you've studied and maybe just based it upon, what you've lived?
to be honest, the books are probably a result of my work on myself, but also with other men later on. Because I had a coaching business, and I first had a personal training business, which I was helping men to change their bodies. But
Hmm.
like most of those people who came to me, we ended up going deeper than just the physical,
Right.
and later that evolved into a coaching business, which I did purely online. And a lot of the patterns I saw in other men and in myself, but always first. I'm always first in terms of I know most about myself,
Right.
and everything else that matches. I'm thinking, wait a minute, that looks like it's a very common things with men, very very common pattern. And so I started gathering material over. I mean, I've been doing the actual work pretty much since the beginning. So 2011. As soon as I started to change, I started to help other men. That's from 2011. But then seriously working with traumatized people from 2014. Then I started working with asylum seekers, trafficked people, then homelessness. Now I work with men on probation. So there's lots of trauma. But I'm probably one of the most traumatized people that I've worked with.
Well, it seems to be that way, right? We're always trying to figure out how to help ourselves in that.
So
Now,
there's a lot in the books that is from my own story, but
yeah,
also the patterns I see in men. That's why they're books for men. Apart from the last one, Rise from the Ashes, that's universal. That's just a quick self-help guide. But most of the other ones are just for men, and a lot of it is from my own story or men I've worked with.
excellent. All right, and the father wound, and blueprint for masculinity. That book that you were just holding up a minute ago,
Yes.
is that primarily based on your relationship with your dad?
It's based on what I've learned about masculinity, what forms masculinity. And I
Yeah,
think, and if I read you just the table of contents, so I start in the shallows, what I've observed, which is not really my concern. I mean, I'm not a political person, but I've observed things about our age that are unique. And then I go deeper. So chapter one is fatherless world. That there's a lot of father lack in the world, and that reflects everything, including society, culture, religion, everything. And then chapter two is man hating society because of the fatherlessness, and we turn against men because men abandon us, they beat us up, whatever. Chapter three, father hunger. How father hunger is driving some forces in the world, and I use some characters from culture that I've observed how father hunger and our own attitude about our fatherlessness, how that drives us. And then chapter four is the father wound. That's how men are wounded from their fathers. Chapter five is the deformity of men, like the choices that we make because of the wound, and how sometimes we're either going to, I'll never be like my father. Okay, but at what cost? You're losing something there. Or I'll never question my father. I'll never criticize him. He's just there. I want to be just like him. Both are equally as bad in many ways. Chapter six is masculine initiation. Now, what's missing in our world? It's like boys, they need to be, manhood needs to be something that's actually, and even with me, all the trauma work I did in the world, I still had to go and experience some things alongside other men. Nothing can replace that. Even to learn to swim, I was taught by an older man for about a week. It was hard, it was difficult. So I had to trust another man to take me through this initiation. And that's just one little thing. And chapter seven is meeting the father. That's when I had a spiritual father experience myself that changed me, even physically, changed my body. Chapter eight is why honor your father. That's the last chapter. Because honor, I argue that it's not, oh, my father was great. Let's not dig there. But it's more, honor is something. What if you didn't have a father? There's still something to find out. Find out. There's still something to honor. Honor is the ancient Hebrew word means wait seriously. Take that seriously. So whoever your father was, take him seriously. Learn about what you carry in your DNA because you can capitalize on that instead of rejecting it and expending energy to escape your father, which is so many men today. It just breaks my heart.
right. It's interesting because you've done so much work on yourself with your own father wounds and your own help, and then you've done a ton of work for others and written about it. And then your most recent book, Rise from the Ashes, is not about men. It's just about people in general. It's men and women. It's kind of for everybody. Am I right?
That's right. And it's very, very little. It's a tiny little self-help guide, which you can read in an hour. And I was
Why the
working,
transition is what I'm curious about.
it wasn't even a transition. It was more like, let's make some things practical for some people. Because let's face it, the father wound is people who are interested in masculinity like I was and wanted, basically it's the book that I would like to have read. Because it has many different things. It has history, culture, politics even. It has examples of personal life. It's not just theory. And I wish this book or something like that. Obviously, I'm not the greatest writer in the world. I'm not saying that, but if there was a book like The Father Wound, when I was studying my own masculinity, I would have loved to have read it, and I wrote it for people like me. But The Rise from the Ashes, I was working in this homelessness project, residential project with young people, and I wanted to give them something practical, and I typed up some notes, basically 4 steps. If you guys or girls, because I work with both there. If you follow these steps 15 minutes at a time, like once a week, so altogether 1 hour in a week. And that's why I called it Recover Purpose, Gain Clarity, and Resurrect Your Life in 1 hour a week. If you just give it a 1 hour a week, I guarantee you, your life will change. And so it's so simple. You can read it in an hour. And would you like me to tell you the steps?
Yeah. Okay. Anything you want to share about the book is great. And I don't want you to give away the secret sauce. I mean, people can buy the
That's all
book if
right.
they want to know everything.
Of course, of course. But it's step one is to deal with your historic pain because a lot of the pain that we're triggered by the world is actually historic, and we want to blame this person, that group. a lot of it is here. So when you express that and put it where it belongs, life will change. Step 2, find your inner child, like I did
Mm.
back. It's like find who you used to be, what you used to do, go back to these things, overcome the pain, because the inner child is shut down by pain. Well, if you walk through the pain, you start feeling younger again, no matter how old you are. Step 3, shift your mindset. Find one thing to be grateful about. Because I work with certain people from a certain class that it's very hard. They're very hardened in their, oh well, it's the government's fault. Oh well, it's the other person's fault. Okay, but what about your own responsibility? Do you want to stay there in that mindset? Well, of course, nothing you can do. And that's for those people who said, well, maybe I don't want to stay there. Shift your mindset. I guarantee you, find one thing to be grateful for in a horrible day that you've had. You change. Your whole body will change, the chemistry. And step 4, take one step as your future self. Who you would have been had it not been for the trauma. If all these bad things that didn't happen to you, who might you be? You don't know. I don't know. But who do you want to be? Who did you want to be before? How about take one step as that person? Approach that person on a date that normally would say, oh, she's never going to talk to me. Apply for that job. That's, oh, that's too big for me. Don't just sit in the same situations. Like step forward. And then I wrote a whole story from my heart called The Boy Who Came from Heaven. So it's only a few pages long. And it's about that potential, that golden goodness that we need to realize while we are here in this mortal body. So, and that's it. That's the book.
Nice. All right. No, it was the girl that got you to start working on yourself and say, hey, I need to
Yeah.
start making some changes. But what caused the transition to say, hey, now that I've been working on myself, now I want to go put it out to the world, tell my story, put it in writing and start helping others?
That's a good question. I guess I started to get very passionate about anything that works. And to this day, what you can see when I talk, I do this type of thing like we did now together all the time. At work, to colleagues, to anyone who would listen. And so writing was just one of those mediums. I'm like, and I love writing because I love literature as well. I love reading. And so I said, well, maybe I can write. And as I said, I'm not the greatest writer in the world, but I hope that if I keep writing, I will improve. And writing has been a passion of mine since 2015, I think. And I started this blog for men as well called Men's Corner. I guess writing is just one way of leaving something behind. And yeah,
Nice.
that's it.
Nice. All right. I tell you what, I do have one more question for you here, but before we
Sure.
get there, I want to make sure that how can everybody find your books? How can they reach you? What's the best way to contact you for everybody?
I've got a website called Men's Corner. So it's menscorner.co.uk. But even if you type my name, George Stoimenov, in Amazon, the books will come up.
Okay, great. And that's the best way to find everything, right?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Love that. All right, George, you've shared a ton of your own story. Um, we have a lot of men who listen to this program who I think are identifying with a lot of things you're saying right now. And especially when you talk about the father wound, that's something that, even in our groups, I know that we've talked a lot about what we carry with us. And I think a lot of men also identify with the story that you've told about how, you're just living life. You don't really think about, hey, I have to go do some work on myself until something happens, right? Like you meet a woman who you want to spend the rest of your life with, and you're like, wow, I'm a mess. I have to do something different.
Yeah.
Yeah, my question for you, and I'm hitting you with this out of thin air. I didn't give you any prep for this at all, so I
No
appreciate
worries.
you handling it. But for the men out there who are sitting there going, you know what, that sounds just like me. That sounds just like the problems that I've had. And they're going, what do I do? My question to you is, what's a good first step for these guys who may be realizing as they're listening to you or as they're reading your book, they're realizing I have some of these problems too. How do I start healing myself in this situation? What's a good first step for these guys?
I guess a good first step would be is try to stay away from addictions so that you can start feeling what is there to heal. And many men are like, oh, I should stop watching pornography. Oh, I should stop overeating. I should stop drinking. That's not the point. It's not what you should stop doing. It's what that activity is preventing you from feeling. There's a reason why some of us overeat and others drink and either overwork. But the reason, it's very universal. It's like something has been suppressed and we don't want to feel it. We all know what the right thing is. No, I've never met an obese person who say, "Oh, I love overeating and I will always do it." No, they always say, "My goodness, I wish I could stop, but I just don't know what drives me. I'm trying
Right.
everything." It's a pain drives you, and it's not. That's not about just food. But I have a little bit of experience as well. Food, drink, and any good stuff that we overdo is because of pain. So what is it that you're not feeling, you're not allowing yourself to feel? And that's why there's this saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit," because some of us have already felt it. I'm like, "I'm miserable." Good. That's a good place to be. Now that will be the next step. But most of us can't even get there. And I, on a regular basis, I've had to say, wait a minute, why am I feeling this all of a sudden this compulsion to just seek pleasure? And it's not even wrong. These days I don't have drug addiction or over drinking, but it doesn't feel right. It feels something is messy, something is almost like clogged up inside, and now I just want to go home and eat and watch television and leave me alone. And for
Yeah.
some of us, that's a harmless thing. But for someone like me, who's like the student of the soul, and I'm a practitioner of this, I'm like, I need to practice what I preach, and I will not be healthy. There's an element of me that will never be fulfilled if I keep with that habit, which is kind of very recent experience for me because I'm working now full time in probation and things like that. And I find like in the weekends, just want to be left alone and just, but there was some grief that I wasn't feeling. And until I let go of those comforters, immediate comforters, I wasn't able to feel it. So feel it, step one.
Wow. Not what I expected, but great answer. I mean, that's a great answer, man. Wow.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you sharing so much of your own personal story and all that with all the guys who are listening. That's important, I think, for them to hear it from another man who's gone through so much of this stuff. So
Thank
it's
you.
really, really important to have these conversations, and I'm really glad you came on here to do that. George, as we kind of bring this to a close, and I could sit here talking to you for another half hour because I love your stories, man. I really do. As we kind of bring this to a close, I let me ask you: is there anything that I didn't ask you? Is there anything that maybe we talked about and you want to remind everybody about again, or maybe just a piece of advice, on your way out the door that you want to leave everybody with? I'll let you kind of close, for the last minute or two here.
I guess I just want to give people, especially men, we're talking about men here and many men are listening, hope, because in that book, The Father Wound, I list a few stories, and most of them are from lives of people far older than me. In fact, one who is a close friend to this day is in his mid 70s. So, and his biggest changes started to happening in the last decade. So I just want to leave everyone with some hope. It's never too late. I'm 41, and I hope that if we meet in a year or 2 years' time, you meet a bit more change, a bit more different person, a bit more clear, more energy, more mature, hopefully. And so it's never too late for change. If you have in your spirit this tugging, it's like, I could be more. There is more. Follow that. And the mentors, the friends, the coaches, the trainers will be sent your way. But you need to be the brave one to open up that spirit to say, here I am. What's next? I want more. So, yeah.
Love it. Love it. Great, great wrap up, brother. I love that. And folks, you heard it right here. So, author George Stoimenov. George, thank you so much, brother, for being on, for sharing of yourself and all of your knowledge with our listeners. And it's been great having you here. Thank you for coming on, brother.
Thanks so much, Rory. It's been such a pleasure, man. Like you said, we could have done this like for another 2 hours.
Yep, easily,
So,
easily.
thank you.
All right. Gentlemen, that has been another fantastic episode of the Power Man podcast. And the reason we bring these powerful men on here as guests with these incredibly powerful messages is because we are united in hoping that you can find your power. Because we want you to be able to be a better protector, a better provider, a better leader tomorrow than you are today. We want you to be able to be a better father, better husband, a better man tomorrow than you are today. And the reason that we want that for you is because you matter. It's because you have value, and it's because you're worth it. And at some point, gentlemen, you just have to believe it. Until next time.